In this video we are going to talk about the JFK murder. Before starting this video, like this video and subscribe to our channel for future updates. On November 22, 1963, while traveling in a presidential motorcade through Dealey Plaza in Dallas, Texas, John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States, was assassinated. When Lee Harvey Oswald fatally shot Kennedy from a nearby building, he was in the vehicle with his wife Jacqueline, Texas Governor John Connally, and Connally's wife Nellie. The attack left Governor Connally gravely injured. The motorcade was taken to a local hospital, where Kennedy was pronounced dead 30 minutes later. Connally survived. The Dallas Police Department apprehended Oswald, a former U.S. Marine, 70 minutes after the initial shooting. He was charged with the murders of Kennedy and J.D. Tippit, a Dallas police officer, under Texas state law. Oswald was fatally shot in the basement of Dallas Police Headquarters, then in the Dallas Municipal Building, by Dallas nightclub operator Jack Ruby at 11:21 a.m. on November 24, 1963, as live television cameras were documenting his transfer from the city jail to the county jail. Oswald was brought to Parkland Memorial Hospital, where he died shortly after Kennedy. Ruby was found guilty of Oswald's murder, but the conviction was overturned on appeal, and Ruby died in prison in 1967 while awaiting a new trial. The Warren Commission found after a 10-month investigation that Oswald assassinated Kennedy, that Oswald acted alone, and that Ruby acted alone in executing Oswald. Kennedy was the 8th and most current president of the United States to die in office, and the 4th to be killed, after Lincoln, Garfield, and McKinley. When President John F. Kennedy died, Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson took over as president. The United States House Select Committee on Assassinations, HSCA, agreed with the Warren Commission in its 1979 findings that Oswald's 3 rifle shots caused Kennedy and Connally's injuries. The HSCA decided that Kennedy was likely assassinated as a result of a conspiracy after analyzing a dictabelt audio recording. Although the HSCA determined that analysis indicated to the possibility of a second gunshot and a substantial chance that 2 gunmen fired at the president, the committee was unable to identify a second gunman or group involved in the probable conspiracy. The U.S. Justice Department concluded active investigations into the killing and claimed that no compelling evidence can be produced to support the idea of a conspiracy. However, the assassination of John F. Kennedy continues to elicit heated debate and has inspired a slew of conspiracy theories and alternate scenarios. According to polls performed between 1966 and 2004, up to 80% of Americans believed there was a plot or cover-up. The killing was the first of 4 major assassinations in the United States during the 1960s, occurring 2 years before Malcolm X was killed in 1965 and 5 years before Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy were killed in 1968. Kennedy went to Texas to ease tensions between liberals Ralph Yarborough and Don Yarborough and conservative Texas Governor John Connally in the Democratic Party. During a conference in El Paso in June, Kennedy, Texas native Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson, and Connally first agreed on the visit. Kennedy had 3 main objectives: to assist in increasing contributions to the Democratic Party's presidential campaign fund. In November 1964, he began his campaign for re-election, and to assist numerous prominent Texas Democratic Party members who appeared to be at odds with one another in terms of politics. In September 1963, the trip was announced. On November 18, the motorcade route was finalized and revealed. Kennedy's personal physician, George Berkeley, stated in a death certificate that he arrived at the hospital 5 minutes after Kennedy and instantly determined that life was unlikely, despite Secret Service officials reporting that Kennedy was breathing. The cause of death was indicated as gunshot wound, skull on the death certificate. After heart activity stopped, Kennedy was pronounced dead at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 1900 hours Universal Time Coordinated. The Roman Catholic Church's dying rites were administered by Father Oscar Huber. By the time Huber arrived at the hospital, Kennedy had died, and he had to draw aside a sheet covering Kennedy's face to administer the sacrament of extreme unction, according to the New York Times. Acting White House Press Secretary Malcolm Kilduff confirmed Kennedy's death at 1:33 p.m. Press Secretary Pierre Salinger, along with much of the cabinet, was in Japan that day. Meanwhile, Governor Connally had surgery. Members of Kennedy's security detail were attempting to take Kennedy's body from the hospital when they got into a struggle with Dallas officials, including Dallas County Coroner Earl Rose, who believed he was legally required to perform an autopsy before the body was removed. Rose eventually stood aside as the Secret Service pushed forward. The HSCA's forensic panel, of which Rose was a member, later stated that Texas law required the justice of the peace to decide the cause of death and whether an autopsy was required. The official record of inquest, as well as a second certificate of death, were both signed by a Dallas County Justice of the Peace. Kennedy's body was transported from Parkland Hospital to Love Field just after 2 p.m. His coffin was loaded into the back of Air Force One's passenger compartment, replacing a row of seats that had been removed. Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson had accompanied Kennedy to Dallas and was traveling in the motorcade 2 cars behind Kennedy's limousine. He was sworn in as president by federal judge Sarah Tillman Hughes aboard Air Force One shortly before departure for Washington at 2:38 p.m., with Jacqueline Kennedy by his side. On November 24, Kennedy's body was transported to the United States Capitol in a horse-drawn caisson to lie in state. Hundreds of thousands of people lined up all day and night to see the guarded casket. On Monday, November 25, representatives from almost 90 countries attended the state funeral. Kennedy was buried at Arlington National Cemetery, just outside Washington, Virginia, after a requiem mass at St. Matthew's Cathedral. Many conspiracy theories claim that people or groups other than Lee Harvey Oswald were involved in the killing. Most contemporary ideas include a criminal conspiracy involving the FBI, CIA, U.S. military, mafia, Vice President Johnson, Cuban President Fidel Castro, the KGB, or a combination of those organizations. Polls continually reveal that the majority of Americans believe Kennedy was assassinated by a conspiracy. According to Gallup polls, about 20 to 30% of the population believes Oswald acted alone. These polls also reveal that no one knows who else might have been involved. In numerous Kennedy assassination conspiracy theories, former Los Angeles District Attorney Vincent Bugliosi estimated that 42 groups, 82 assassins, and 214 people had been implicated. The assassination caused shock around the world. Before the president's death was revealed, the first hour after the shooting was a time of immense chaos. The shooting occurred during the Cold War, and it was first unclear whether it was part of a bigger attack against the United States. There was also anxiety about the safety of Vice President Johnson, who was 2 cars back in the motorcade. The news stunned the country. While some prayed, others openly grieved and gathered in department stores to watch the television news. As word passed from car to car, traffic in certain sections came to a halt. Students were dismissed early from schools across the country. Some people have shown hostility toward Texas and Texans. Several Cleveland Browns fans, for example, hoisted placards at the following Sunday's home game against the Dallas Cowboys, accusing Dallas of killing the president. Kennedy's opponents, on the other hand, were seen cheering the assassination. "Hey, great, JFK's croaked," exclaimed a woman on the streets of Amarillo, according to a journalist. Many people around the world were affected by the event. "Where were you when you heard about President Kennedy's assassination?" would become a common topic of discussion, much like the preceding attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, and, much later, the September 11th attacks. What do you think about this video? Do let us know down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from us again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go.